Continuing our slog through Robert Fludd, De Motu, his second book, continuing some explanations and explications on machines utilizing, well, circular motion, motions of wheels and gears, and reductions, and so forth. First, he depicts a simple press for pressing of copper or bronze tablets. But the description is actually interesting because such a simple machine combines both the first and second methods. Not quite sure how to translate the technical term primum et secunda differentiae genere. The first and second prime differences of circular motion, which the preceding chapter, he went on about at some length, ending up with, clockwork, the workings of a clock. So, primum differentiae is when you have two adjacent gears next to each other, and the motion is being translated along the exterior circumference. And secunda differentiae genere is when motion is being transferred circularly from the outside, like some tripetal area, in towards the center, that pseudo-centrifugal force. Whatever, it's all physics. But both of these concepts come together in this first depiction of the torcular he gives. So, torcular impressorum ad aeneas tabulas aut ad extendendas laminas metallicas, cum habuerit duos volulolos aut arbores notandum est, quod superior minores debet esse crassitudinis, et inferior maioris, quia motus sit in centro superiori, quare certum est, quod sit ex secundae differentiae genere. Inferior autem cum motum sum recipiata lamina interjecta, agens in ipsius superficiem, et ex primae differentiae rotanum numero existit, ut in figura sequenti patet. So it's necessary to build the top arm, or the top spindle, to be of a lesser width than the bottom, because the bottom one is receiving the interseating lamination. It's receiving the tablet, going through it, being squeezed. All right, let's get to more interesting stuff. Now we have it set up so we can look. Why am I doing this crazy split screen thing? It's so annoying. Well, it's for my reading benefit, so I can read the text and reference the picture at the same time. De instrumento per quod aqua exharietur ex aliqua profunditate, ubi fabricantes impediret, comprenditurque in prima rotarum differentia. This is a depiction of a machine by which water can be drawn up from some great depth, where it might be impeding the work of craftsmen, and it is to be understood that this operates by means of the prima rotarum differentia, by gear reduction along their circumferences. Am I getting that right? Okay, we're going to keep the image here on the left, and we'll go to the next page and look at the text here. Rota aquaria sit duodecim pedum altitudinis, hoc est diametra illis. Rota secunda scilicet D. D sit quinque pedum in suo diametro. Tertia vero altitudo constrabit ex quator pedibus. Habet tota secunda nempe D 72 dentes, et rota tertia A has quinquinti 50. Rotula vero B conflatur ex dentibus duodecim. Okay, so the big water wheel is 12 feet tall, connected to, and the secondary wheel is, 4 feet tall, and the second wheel has 72 teeth, and the third wheel, A, has 50 teeth. And the first little wheel, B, has 12 teeth. C has 10. Okay, those are our little wheels and our larger wheels of successively smaller size. Certum est ergo quod rota aquaria trigesies vertatur. Every 3 times the big wheel turns, dum tertia semel circum navictor, quius fuso alt arbore pompae sive haustra applicantur. For every 3 times this wheel turns, wheel A turns 1 time, by which the increased or multiplied force is transmitted directly to by these levers in pinions. Quorum pistila plumbea adeo ponderosa sunt, ut cadere possint quanto aquam hausirent. Sin altem satis ponderosa fuerint, if you can build this thing sturdy enough, it's better to make a camshaft sort of thing, is what he says. Melius erit pistula manubrio tertiae rotae in haerere, quo elevarit repelli per illud queant. Primum igitur aquae violentiam movetur superficies rotae exterioris, quius motu rotula B compellit rotam secundam D, atque quius etiam rotula rotam tertiam circulariter agit, quae vovens suum axem movet etiam simul duo ligna terram circulariter. Oops, duo ligna. Repeating lines is a common occurrence here when I'm trying to read these. Duo lignaelius centrum transfeunta, quorum prius suis extremitatibus, successive a multu arboris declinationibus deprimendo extremitatem unam ligni fk nempe k eius depressione. Oh, there it is. When one is depressed, the other one is up. Facit aliam sibi oppositam ascendere, quae ascendendo trahit secum ferum, fr in quius elevationis instanti deprimitur extremitas alteris ligni, nempe es propter pistoli plumbei cum suis ventilibus gravitatem. Atque ita alternatim agunt contrariis motibus dicta duo ligna, quorum actionibus aqua in fundo sursum per haustra et pompas elevator, in canalem vivi. Idem etiam officium praedictum praestrahit manubrium tertiae rotae, quod dictus ilius rotae axis vel arbor, quius curvatura H, which is unlabeled, erit in hoc logno Rn et alterna I loco ligni GP, atque hanc viam potius eligendam esse putamus. I think there was supposed to be more to this drawing that was not completed. But he thinks it's a better design to do the little camshaft thing rather than that, if you can build it sturdy enough. On to the next one. De artificio quo tuntur Germani in fordinis metallicis ad Baltimariae vulgo Markirch. This was a mining apparatus used to pump quantities of water out of German mines nearby the Baltic Sea, called in the native language Markirch, or maybe that was the location, I'm not sure. And he doesn't say much about it other than it was able to raise water from 60 poles depth, that is 360 feet. It looks like this was done little by little with these various platforms, like each stroke of the chain going up and down would raise water just 10 feet or so, probably to the next box, and then to the next one, and then to the next one. Then it would eventually come out. That's what I glean just from looking at it. And the big water wheel is 40 feet in diameter. 40 feet, this big wheel. This is quite a large machine. All right, if you're still with me, we're moving on to the first fanciful, false machine of perpetual motion, one of a few that he depicts. De instrumento haud spernendo quo quidam Helvetius multum perpetuum in venisse procerto credebat, estque Spaciae primae rotarum differentiae, on this scarcely believable apparatus by which a certain Swiss inventor or engineer thought that for certain he had discovered perpetual motion. Nevertheless, the depiction of this machine runs based on the primae rotarum differentiae. Just have a look at that. Okay. Oh, and then there's kind of this cutaway where this elevator that's lifting these weights back up to be placed so that the wheel only, this front portion of the wheel is being loaded and unloaded, so it continuously spins. And then somehow this gear work is going to drive these lifters to lift the weights back up. Seems very dubious to me. Let's read about it. Labeling the parts. A is rota principalis, the main wheel. BC, pondera unius lateris, the weights on one side, and DEF are the weights on another side. Baculus portator, the raiser of the weights, or the raiser of the staff. Baculus portator. Sustiniens baculum, that which is holding the bacula. Rotula elevans, the elevated wheel. K. Eius pecten, the elevated wheel which has teeth. Okay. Corona, the crown, rotating at the top. Pecten coronae, which also has teeth. Interfracta, the wheel that is broken up, the broken up wheel. So, oh, this is continuously spinning, but it only drives these things sequentially. Oh, okay, I get it. Arbor, the big spindle O. Orbiculus, that refers to this little pulley at the top. Corda, the rope holding it. And pondus quatur librarum, each weight is 4 pounds. All right. Rota principalis hoc modo sit scilicet ut in duodecim partis aequales deviatur, in uno ac latera latere, et assignantur quique lateri clavi sexta eram distentia, ad invicem dispositi sictanen, ut quivis clavus stet in medio duorum aliorum ex altera latere rotae, et non unus juxta alium. Okay, so the wheel is divided into 12 parts, and there are 6 weights attached via pegs to each side, but it's important that they are not directly across from each other. They are staggered on opposite sides of the wheel. Appensis iam ponderibus sexta, quorum in quovis lateris sunt tria omnia tamen sexta, in una parte rotae circa centrum. Reperitur haec rota una rata pondera decima quinqua librarum. So it has 15 pounds of total weight. He calculates in a linear manner when you're counting it up. Quia pondus C in recta linea habet pondus quatur, DE circa septima ponda, BF antem quatur, quae simul aggregatae efficiunt quinquidecima ponda, quem ad modum ex regulis primi caput et ex prima ex secundi caput liber primi patet. He's just saying in shorthand, I already explained the basics of how this ought to work. So as it moves, movetur iam rota ita ut infimum pondus aprompinquet clavo baculi portantis, qui positis juxta B and F, recipit hoc pondus per uncum suum, ubi illi adherenti portator in altum et rota inferius evacuata perget. Interim apropinquat clavus proximus, qui sequitur B, et in eodem loco, ubi iam est B recipit pondus sibi apportarum a baculo, et ita semper oneratur rota in superiori et ex onerata in inferiore parte, quia semper. Yeah, as I've just said, it's being loaded and unloaded continuously. Dum duodecima pars rotae volvitur, baculum ascendere, et dum alia dodecima pars vertitur, iterum eundum descendere neces est. Elevator autem baculus per rotulam quae rotula terventendo atigit omnem altitudinem baculi, ipsum ad clavum usque desideratum elevans. Vertitur autem eius modi rotula per pectinem suum C, a corona quae et ipsa per suum pectinem M, a rota interfracta N, semel volvitur et aquavis duodecima parte rota interfracta O. Semper dentes habente in duodecima sua parte superficii et hoc sexis. Abetenim alias intermedias vacuas eustem speciei ad relinquendam baculum, quis ponte sua cadere et per casum suum rotulam Q et coronam M reverti cogit. Ne autem cagat cum impetum suspensus est ad cordam Q alteri baculo adherentem per orbiculum P, quia tantum quantum unus baculus cadit alter ascendit. Yeah, I'm not quite so sure about that. And then he says, oh, we're not quite done explaining. We're getting to his point. Rota interfracta fixa est arbori aut axi rotae principalis et eius vi circumvolitur, quod autem similia instrumenta posita sunt. Sunt ex alio rotae principalis latere eusit, quod semper et continua laborator o ignorator. Yes. Et sic semper rota habet quinque pondere pendentia et unum semper nascente baculo. It always has 5 weights on one side and 1 ascending. Sed, all right. Here's the point we're getting to. Sed quam vis haec viri Helvetici theoria sit satis ingeniosa et probabilis, quod quinque pondere inherentia rotae unum pondus facile trahere et elevare deberent, at tamen quia vis non est proportionata ad tempus, nihil hic efficitur, quia ascendens pondus per transire debet per pondera quinque aut per spatium tot partium, quarum unica ipsum movetur. Unicum pondus ascendens tantum perdurat, quantum caetera quinque ratione longi transitus. Ergo se ipsum superare nequit. Hanc ingeniatoris Helvetici inventionem eusque errorem hoc loco descripsimus ut, huius scientiae curiosi maiori diligentia proportionem cognitionem perscutentur, easque sedulo observent. Yeah. Moving on, here's the next one. Capita quinque. De instrumenti structura quo aqua currens in altum elevatur, Instrumentum quius structurae aliquando prope capuam in palate aliquis comitis Neapolitani horto superflumen aedificatum observari, quod fluminis multo impulsum aquam sursum in ortum super eminentem elevabit. Eius autem descriptio sequitur. So he claims that he saw this in gardens in Naples, and it was installed at the river, and when the river would flow with a high tide, it would be enough to drive this pump to raise the water by, I guess, peculiar engineering of Siphon and Bernoulli's principles, you might say. Rota aquaria quius multu rotula B in extremitate arboris C affixa movetur, atque huius etiam actione circumvoluitur arbor sive axis C, cum qua vertitur simo canalis sive fistula D, ex quorio satis duro et spiso conflata, quae spiraliter ascendens, ut vides axem ambit. E est ventile in guture maioris extremitatis canalis de orsum et in aqua submersae collocatum, quod facilioris intellectus causa littera F depinximus. So you've got a big orifice and then a little vent, E, that he draws a cutaway here. So this would be facing a particular direction to provide a little extra pressure as this is turned, submerged. And supposedly that would be enough. I would think you'd have to prime the pump by loading it, getting rid of the hydraulic head or loading it with water first. Quis autem usus est, ut aqua ingrediens per foramen in canalis gutere non recedat, quisque altera axis volutione, osculum maiori aquae pondere repletum, pondos minus suo onere per superiora detrudat. Maior enim aquae quantitatis continetur inter os corii et eius gutur, quam inter gutur sive ventile et extremitatem G. Atque hinc est quod continua praeparatione aquae in orificio fistulae continua etiam inducit aquae exputitionem in parte superiori. Someone should try to build this. See if it'll work. Moving on, chapter 6, de alientramento per quod aqua ad quam libet altitudinem elevare potest. Oh yeah, this is a lengthy one. But this looks like it would actually work. Okay, once again, chapter 6. He says when he was staying in Rome at the certain house of this cardinal who was an inventor, I almost said magician, inventor, ingentator, or engineer, rather. He was an engineer for George VI, and he was a better teacher of these physical matters than our author, Robert Fludd. He made the thing in this way. Hius modi instrumenta procardialis suo domino fabricavit, quo aquam parvulo fonte, in monticuli selcolis pede, scaliantem in hortum ad illis verticem positum cogeret ascendere, nec satis eius artificium et inventionem collodari potui, qui ex tam parva aquae scatebra aliquam tamen eius partem in altam tanta facilitate compellere poterat. Figurautem eius inventiones infra depingitur. And this is great because he labels everything and he even puts dimensions on everything. So it's quite straightforward. Rota aquaria abens altitudinem octo pedem. The big water wheel's 8 feet tall. A rotula. Rotula erit unius pedis in diametro. The little rotula A is 1 foot. Rotula B erit quinque pedum in longitudine, 5 feet. Rotula C is 1/2 foot, semipedis in suo diametro. D rota habebit 4 pedes altitudinis. All right. And E sunt duo ventilia plumbea in latere canalis KK. So these little vents or valves are stuck to the side of the submerged cistern. And F is quoque ventile in orificio tubi. And there's also a valve at the base of the tubi, or the trompa. G est instrumenti tubus duorum digitorum diametri. Okay, so the tubes, or the squeeze boxes, or the pumps, the cistern pumps, were 2 digits in diameter. So they're quite small. Quis altitudo erit viginti pedum. 2 digits in diameter, but reaching up to 20 feet tall. So this drawing really is not to scale here. Sunt duo aquae haustra ex quorio in modum saculi facta. So the haustra, or the cistern pumps, are made in the manner of sacks out of durable leather. Quorum quisque mensura est uit. Oh, they can hold a volume of 16 pounds of water. Quorum passet corpicum ex ligno. 16 pounds of water, and they're braced by wood on the top and the bottom. BB sunt duo pondera ambo haustra ex quoro. Okay, and they've got weights on them. Haustra ex quorio comprimentia, quorum quisque latitudo diametro est, qua tubor digitorum. So the weight is 4 fingers in diameter on top of the cisterns, which are sewn leather attached, which are 2 digits in diameter. Hae autem pondera ex plumbo constari debent, et quod libet eorum ponderabit 170 pounds of pressure are created by the combined force of this machine and the water. Canalis ad foramen pomparum sive haustrorum conjunctus. LL haustrorum pars interior in quorum inferiori parte sive fundo ex ligno conflato, duo ventilia plumbea nempe ii posita existunt. Duo ventila ex plumbo quorum unum. What are we looking at here? Here we go. Duo ventila ex plumbo quorum unum apta exprimitur cum tubi orificio in EP NN, or is that eta? I'm not sure. Sunt ligna sive pinula axis centrum rotae D et angulus rectos penetrantia, quorum elevatione elevantur successive pompae sive haustra, quam aqua in is per ventile ei et attraitur. O est lignum vel quasi uncus per quem diameter n elevat dicta austra, q est axis sive fusus rotae. Everything is labeled. And because he has so meticulously labeled everything, it ought to work. Aye. And we're not done. He has much to say about it. Haustrum quodque plumbi pondere I, proportionatio oneratum est, quae austra cum elevantur per pinulas en infuso q extenditur quorium, quod instar laternae. Laternae, that's what they're called. Like lanterns. Laternae protraitur, et cum vacuum esse nihil posit, itur laternaec quem superius ita clausa est, ut nullum abeat respirationem attrahit, aquam siponis modo per ventile. Et dum statim pinulae transeunt, cadit, et restringitur austrum per pondus plumbeum ae, quo perculum haustri oneratum est. Restringendo comprimitur omnis aqua, et expellitur per foramen ventilis I, quod ad latus in opposito canali ligneo si, et simil in pede ligneo austri, tamen supra aut altius quam aliud ventile. Per foramen et exterius extra austrum, sed interius in canalis latre plumbea lamina clausum est, et ventile etiam appellare debet, quia cum impletur austrum clauditur per attractionem hoc, cum autem expellitur aqua, aperitur per expulsionem aquae. Infine, quius canalis tubus ei applicatus est, et aliud ventile, quod quidem non ita necessario, securitatis causa ponitur. Et urgetur haec aquae per tubum hunc ascenderen autum, quantum placet, modo ut proportio observitur ponderis omnia instrumenta bene obturentur, ne respirent. On the importance of the proportion between the building of the cistern and the trompas, or the lanterns above it. Ponderetur aqua, quae in haustrum tuum ingredi potest, postea men surretur eius altitudo ac multiplicentur in vicem cum pondera aquae, et habebis exactum proportionem. Exempli gratia, austrum tuum intrinsicus continet duo pedes altitudinis et 16 libras aquae. Tubus autem es viginti pedum altitudinis, tum videis, te abere decies altitudinem austri. Ergo per decima multiplicabis 16, quod est pondus aquae et invenies centum et sexginti, centum. Tot igitur librae plumbi requiruntur ad exprimendum aquam usque ad orbificium tubi. Iam porro ade alias decima libras quae efficiunt centum et septima ginti. Hae decem ad minus librae ponderis sumuntur necessario tribus de causis. You need extra weight for 3 reasons. Primum, quod instrumentum per se indigit pondere. Secundo, quod aqua exilire altius debet, quam orificium est. Tertio, quod aqua compressa in alto tubo efficitur corpus compactius et ponderosius, quam si minutium ponderatur. Yeah, it's generating great pressure, so this thing better be strong, and you better have a significant, engineering margin of safety. That's the whole point. And these 170 pounds tuum plumbeum, quo honoratum esse debet austrum tuum ad elevationem viginti pedum, aliter nihil efficies. So given these proportions and using 170 pounds, you should be able to lift the water 20 feet. Otherwise, you will do nothing. All right, I gotta have more energy. I gotta have the energy to do another perpetual motion one. This one, just stare at the drawing a bit. Doesn't quite work, even the way that it's drawn. How is this made? How is this attached? What is supporting this frame? De alia bona inventione ad aquas facile elevandas, quo quidam Italus se motum perpetuum invenisse. Iactitare ausus est, or facitare. This Italian dared think that he had discovered perpetual motion by means of this machine. Well, the parts. Here is the haustrum, or the pompa. B is the rotula affixa in haustri fundo, the submerged wheel. Super quam pistella sive rotunda ex quorio conflata. These rotunda, these round bits, were constructed of leather, and they're attached by a chain, so these would scoop up and raise water. And they would have to be sized just right to fit through this orifice and through the pipe. And that's exactly what he lays out here. Numeratur hoc instrumentum inter rotas primae differentiae, quod valde est necessarium in multis usibus, quia minimum labore magnam aquae quantitatem sursum propter rotarum multitudinem ferre non est dubium. Certainly there are many machines similar to this by which water can be raised using the power of other water. Nevertheless, this is impossible. Longitudo autem Austriae est 35 pedum, eius vero latitudo pedis, unum cum tertissimo secundum proportionem. Okay, so pipe A is 35 feet high, and it's 1 1/3 feet in its diameter, which is going to be the same size as the rotunda ex quorio going into it. cuius concavitates rotundae exacte fieri debent, ut non perdant aliquid aquae ab iis attractae in suis ascensionibus pompae igitur concavitas erit bene rotunda. Rota magna aquaria habebit pedes viginti quator in altitudine, illa vero G pedes viginti. Italus ille sua contemplatione deceptus putabat se tantum aquae per pompam elevaturum ut rotam aquarium perpetuo movere cogeret, quia maiorem vim requiri dicebat in fine huius instrumenti quam in principio, sed quia male capiebat ponderum proportiones igitur in sua praxi erat deceptus. He was crazy. And even if you stare at this image for a bit, the way that it's drawn, it won't turn the right direction to drive the thing in the right direction. I think it's also a trick of perspective, almost M.C. Escher-esque, the way this is drawn. I think that this rotula, or this, I guess you call it a corona rotula, because it is... there, G needs to be upside down, mounted on top, so that it would spin the other direction. That would ensure that this thing at least moves in the right way. But I still don't think it would work. De curriculi structura, qui motum interno, hoc est rotae quiustam internae, ab incidente facta circum rotatione ante et retro movere potest. What is he talking about? He's talking about an automobile. A chariot that can go forwards and backwards based on stored energy in the spring, I think. Or is this just a drivetrain where it will go? Yeah, this isn't storing energy here. It will just go forwards or backwards. Dominus de Belian mon speluncis in hac arte optime versatus hoc instrumentum pro magna abebat secreto, nec mihi modum ilius structurae detegere voluit, ego tamen motum super mensam sedulo observando, cum essem in hac arte quodam modo versatus. Subtilitatem protinus concepi, et postea acceptis carta et pluma clanculum in meo cubiculo, artificium eius depinxi, currumque hunc in minima quantitate feci, nec ullum modoac ab actione ilius dicti magistris sive ingeniatoris discrepare in veni. Eius autem descripto sequitur. So this was another guy's design, and he doesn't quite recall all of it, but he's going to do the best he can to describe it here. Rota major antecedans. Oh, none of this is labeled, so this would be A. B and C is duae rotae laterales, quarum multo impellitur rota A. E and F sunt duo axes cum suis pectinibus, quorum unius pecten recipit pectinen anterius ita ut unus agat in alium. Okay, the teeth would go one at a time in order to drive it. HH sunt duo rotulae cum suis etiam pectimus agentibus in alius duos pectines rotis. B and C affixos nempe CG. Rota axem sive arborum, F circumvolens. This would be the differential. Manubrium circumvolens rotulam hac in figura absconditam, quae suo pectine movet rotulam I. Agens primus in curriculo circumducit manubrium, K. Per suum axem movet rotam L in latere descriptam. Rota L suo pectine circumducit rotam I. vertit arborum ff. Arbor autem illa suis dentibus agit in dentes axis. Ii vim faciens, ilum etiam voluentum. Hic axis rotulas HH movet, quae suis dentibus agunt in dentes rotulam affixarum rotis lateralibus. Unde et illae rotae vi rotularum dictarum circum voluntur. Hae autem rotae lateralis progredientes aut retrogredientes movent, etiam rotam anteorum vel retro, vel in partem anteriorum. Nunc continuens caput nona. De curriculo alio ex movente intrinseco retro et antrorsum progredio qui idem etiam subtilitate alia praecendenti anticellente post oblique dextrosum vel sinostrum moveri. Here's another apparatus that you can combine with the above, not only to go forwards and backwards, but also to go left and right. And these were the inner workings of, these medieval tanks, basically. Cum curriculum praecendens solum modo antrosum et retro volator a suo incidente, hoc nostrum curriculum Romae acquisitum, quoniam illud ad quam visitum, et in quam libet viam deflecti possit, illi capitis praecedentis, praeponendum existimamus, ut igitur eius confectionem a nobilissimo Romae ingeniator et mei magistri gruteri socio accepi. Sic ipsam hoc in loco propose meo describam. And again, it's not labeled, but we can figure out where these parts are that he's pointing to. Est vis in fine vertens rotam G. So you apply the force here, and it turns that. Est fusus transiens perpectinem D vertentem rotam C, quae terram tangit cum duabus rotulis est H. Axis polus circa quem movetur rota C, antrosum et retrosum. Arcus pectinis, totum currum in utroque latere gubernans. Okay, that would be that. Dirigetur autem ille arcus rotula sive pectine, ae qui regitur pinulis. Okay, so you had like a turning wheel and then a further control, like a trim tab behind it. Something like that. I think this is the last one in the chapter. Is it chapter 10? De quodam artificio per quod extrahitur aqua bona ex putio bono per aquam stagni aliquius putrida. This is like a PVC, like ram scoop pump sort of thing, just using pressure. What just came out of my mouth was like modern parlance. You see people build these things using a siphon force to pump water from, an even greater depth, all things being in proportion. He describes it as using foul water, putrid water, to raise up water from another good well. So you're out there on the land, and you've got a pond or a water source. That's what this is. So you're able to put this drain in something, and, that would flow across the land and gain hydraulic head and pressure, and that would be enough to fill this submerged tipping pump sort of thing that would actuate a valve, a circular or an angular valve, that would open and close this pipe, which would effectively work as a siphon that was attached to another valve on the other side. So using this hydraulic pressure head, you would be able to siphon a little bit of water at a time from this deeper well but it would be shut off on this side. And so after priming the pump here and letting this thing run, you would essentially allow it to pump up water to the surface out of this good well. In very not good English, that's how I describe what I'm seeing here. It is, of course, described in the Latin much more technically. So here we go. Quam vis hoc loco non ad sint rotae. There are no wheels that you see ostensibly in this. Nevertheless, it relies on this same principle. Quia diameter rotae imaginariae nempe. E.g., you have to imagine a wheel in here. Quius centrum est h, totam ferre huius experimente actionem complet. De eo, eusque descriptione paucis hinc loquemur. Aqua descendens per tubum e. Transit per foramen angulatum, claustri h. In tubum si et sublevat lignum, coreo coerpertum, et proportionaliter honoratum plumbo, ponderans secundum proportionem altitudinis distantiae inter orificium tubi B et exitus stagni. Sublevato dicto pondere in laterna I, compellit aquam in tubo D inclusum. Quae recedere non potest, sed cogitur exitum quaerere per tubam B. Et tam diu hoc ita laborat compellendo aquam. Claustri liberatio, qui una ex parte ad haeret, vasculum recipiens gutatim aquam, stilantem ex tubo E per spiramen, et hoc factum. Itaque cum repletum est praeporandans contrapondus, alterius partis liberationis cadit in clavum subtus, sic fixum et aperien ventile suum repanditur, casu autem ipsius vasculi claustrum ita vertitur, quod foramen angulatum suum. Cum respondebat ad tubum B et ad tubum C, iam ad tubum inferiorem I and C aperturam faciens, unde refluxu aquae ex G in I pondus elevatum in laterna I recidit, cum autem laterna non potest esse vacua, attrahit aquam per ventile C in modo symphonis, quia per attractionem ventile superius recluditur. Ita ut semper laterna tubus D et tubus B sit plena aquae. Statim altem cum pondus laternae elapsum, et aliqua tubi C evacuata est, recluditur claustrum, quia contrapondus liberationis mox iam praeponderavit, quando vasculum ut dictum est, clavum attigit, et aquam expandit, recluso claustro repetit effectum. Sicut in principio diximus, repente acito fiunt hae repetitiones. So this happens repeatedly, very quickly, all underneath the ground, behind the scenes. But it results in a small, steady flow of water upwards. Itaque omnis aqua putrida intrat in puteum, quiet tamen non multum ab his aquis crescere potest, nisi duorum aut trium pedum. It can't raise it that far, like 2 or 3 feet, quia exitum quaerit per vena subterraneas. In puteum semper alia aqua accidit per ventas eius. Notandum hic, quod prima vice tubus D implendus est per orificium N, quod statim recluditur, ac semper ita reclusum permanet. All right, my palate is exhausted from sight reading the Latin, and my brain is starting to get tired too. If we continue, the next section will be his third book on motion, where he talks about, he calls it motion of the elements. This is like phase changes and pressure changes between air and water vapor and things like that. So it continues to get interesting with Robert Fludd. And I am done speaking. Thank you for joining me once again. Walete, amici.